It's an interesting time right now in the markets. If you're not paying attention, World War III started, and there are a few things that might move quite a lot. Um, it's a rare thing, but sometimes firms go to zero. Sometimes markets break, and there are a few opportunities here that I'm watching. One, silver, SLV. COMEX has physical metals in their vaults, but the paper redemptions at some point are going to exceed the silver in the vault, and then there's going to be some kind of repricing. Some funds will freeze. I'm watching SLV and AGQ. Both of those could break and go to zero. Another one that I'm watching is Citigroup. If we're looking at the potential for some banks to be blown up from leveraged contracts. Basically, the situation in the oil market is um, there are kind of two main grades. There's like light sweet crude and then the heavy crude. And America's processing mostly we're able to produce the light sweet crude, but that really thick heavy crude is um, it's going to cause a bit of a problem because the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is being drawn down, and we're processing as much as we can, but our ability to refine the crude oil is at capacity, and our demand basically is exceeding our ability to produce it mechanically. So there's going to be a spike in oil prices, which means a shortage in availability. And so some banks which are positioned to which are levered up are at risk of defaulting. So some banks in Europe are at risk of going under. If we look at the Trump administration, we see like J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon was potentially going to become part of the administration. We can assume some banks are going to survive no matter what. Some banks are going to implode, and Citi is one of those banks that I think they'll let die to look like kind of a power move. They'll say, "Oh, see, in 2008 we didn't let the big banks die, but look, we let this one die." But pick and choose. But I'm saying, there are a couple things that might go to zero. Another one is Taiwan, TSM. China has announced many times they're looking for opportunities for reunification, and of course, if they move against the island, TSMC, 95% of their assets are in Taiwan, and so it would move out of U.S. control. That's another position that could go, from something to nothing overnight. And when these moves happen, I trade options a lot. When something goes from something to nothing, there's a lot of upside to be made because it's a rare event. So, like I said, so physical metals delivery in particular, I'm most bullish on silver due to industrial consumption. But all metals, I like gold, I like platinum and palladium, and uranium. I mean, if we're just talking about any kind of um, real resource, there's going to be a repricing with physical assets where kind of the amount of money in the world is so extreme that it must flow into these things, and the numbers across the board are going to pump up. But again, so the short-term situation is on April 15th, there are a lot of, that's Q1 finalizer. So Citigroup is going to have their Q1 earnings report at the same time that a lot of these futures contracts are going to roll over. This might be the same time that kind of the COMEX market decides to do cash redemptions, which could cause a lack of or a decoupling between the physical market of metals and the paper contracts market of metals. So um, anyway, it seems like volatility inbound, and what I'm mostly interested in is looking at what can blow up and where that opportunity is. Longer term, all hard assets, everything with real physical limited supply. If we're talking about crude oil, if we're talking about gold, all of these things are going to outpace the value of fiat over time. Especially in this economy, there could be a kind of the dollar milkshake theory where a lot of money's being created. We don't quite know how extreme that is, but basically the admin has been allowing central banks to create a lot of money so that U.S. equities can be purchased, and it it should it should cause liquefaction across the board in terms of uh, kind of a escape to real value, or like reversion to real value. So yeah, just something to watch. So I think this week is going to be kind of the last week of opportunity to enter these trades that are expecting the April 15th resolutions. And so I think AGQ, the 2X instrument, you know, if that freezes and goes to redemption, silver could pay out, you know, 50 to 1 or 100 to 1, something like that. Same for TSMC. I think that's paying out like 50 to 70 to 1. And then back to hard assets, if we're just talking about inelasticity, right now, everybody, it's obvious that there's this oil shortage, but that also means right now there's the fertilizer shortage. It's already more expensive. The planting season is already partway through. And if we look at the historical demand for wheat, we see that wheat will probably be on track to be setting a record this year. So if you're just looking for upside instead of things going straight to zero, then there's an opportunity to get maybe like a 7X or a 15 bagger by the end of the year, just on some long calls on wheat. Just because food is inelastic, you're going to say, well, if I have gold and Bitcoin and whatever, but my family's hungry, there is not enough wheat in the world. There's not enough food in the world to feed everybody next year, probably. So unfortunately, a lot of assets are going to slip to hard commodities.